comfortably for this one, and
Hmm.
maybe, just maybe, you might want to keep the lights on.
Oh, this is definitely a lights on kind of story.
It really is.
Yeah.
Today, we are punching a very specific address into our mental GPS. It's an address that, for a massive chunk of the population, instantly conjures up a very specific, very terrifying image. I'm
Hmm.
talking about 112 Ocean Avenue, Amityville, Long Island.
The Dutch Colonial.
Eh.
High gambrel roof, dark shingles, and those two quarter-round windows on the top floor that look, well, they look exactly like eyes staring back at you.
That is the one. It is arguably the most famous haunted house address in history. I mean, it's the house that launched 1,000 nightmares, a dozen movies, and enough books to fill a whole library shelf.
It's a brand at this point.
It is. But here's the thing, and this is what we are really going to dig into today. The story of Amityville is not just one story. It is actually two completely distinct narratives that have been fused together in the public imagination.
That's exactly right. It's a hybrid beast. On one side, you have a very real, very gritty, and incredibly tragic criminal case.
Mm.
A mass murder that happened in November 1974.
Right.
That is the bedrock reality. It's undisputed. And on the other side, layered right on top of that tragedy, you have this disputed, controversial, supernatural event that allegedly happened about a year later in 1975.
Usually when you hear about Amityville, you get the ghost story, right? You get the green slime, the flies, and the pig with the red eyes.
That's all Hollywood treatment.
Exactly. Or if you're watching a true crime show, you get the forensic breakdown of the murder. But today, our mission is to unpack the layers of the legend by looking at them both, side by side. We want to see how the blood of the crime scene seeped into the folklore of the haunting.
And to do that, we have to analyze the criminal case of Ronald Butch DeFeo Jr., which is the foundation of everything. Then we have to look at the subsequent claims of the Lutz family, who moved in afterwards.
But we aren't stopping there. We've got a stack of sources here.
We do.
Hmm.
We have legal documents, court decisions regarding DeFeo's appeals, which are, frankly, fascinatingly bizarre, and we've got investigative articles on the history of the house itself.
And we have a bit of a curveball in the source stack today, don't we? This is the part I'm most excited about because it takes us away from the is it real or is it a hoax debate and into something more scientific.
We do. We've pulled an academic study from the Journal of Sleep Research. It explores the link between paranormal beliefs and, well, sleep disorders.
So it provides a biological framework.
It really does.
Mm.
A framework that might explain why people see things that go bump in the night. So we aren't just debunking, we are, in a way, diagnosing.
I love that. So we are going from mass murder to federal courtrooms to the neurology of sleep paralysis. This is going to be a ride.
It is.
Let's start with the reality, the hard facts. November 13th, 1974.
This is the night the legend begins, but not in a supernatural way. It starts at a place called Henry's Bar in Amityville. It's a local spot, you know, the kind of place where everybody knows everybody.
What time are we talking?
It's around 6:30 p.m.
Set the scene for us. It's a Wednesday night, quiet town.
Exactly. It's a standard evening. People are having a drink after work. And then the door bursts open. A 23-year-old man named Ronald DeFeo Jr., everyone calls him Butch, stumbles through the door.
And he's not just stopping in for a drink.
No, not at all. He is hysterical. He is visibly shaken, practically collapsing, and he's shouting at the patron, screaming, "You gotta help me! I think my mother and father are shot."
Wow. Now imagine being in that bar. You know this kid. You know his family.
Of course.
So naturally, the people in the bar want to help. They don't wait for the police. They mobilize.
Right. A small group of them pile into DeFeo's car. He's too shaken to drive, so someone else takes the wheel, and they drive over to 112 Ocean Avenue.
It's not far from the bar, right?
No, it's just a short drive.
Mm.
They pull up to this massive house, they rush inside, and what they find, well, it's a scene of absolute devastation.
They go upstairs first, right? That's where his parents' room was.
They go to the master bedroom on the second floor. That's where they find DeFeo's parents, Ronald Sr. and Louise. They are dead.
Oh, man.
One of the men from the bar, realizing the gravity of this, calls the Amityville police immediately.
And when the police arrive and search the rest of the house, the scope of the tragedy just gets worse. It wasn't just a domestic dispute between the parents.
Much, much worse. It was a massacre. As the officers moved through the rooms, they found 4 more bodies. The siblings,
Oh, the kids.
Dawn, who was 18, Allison, 13, Mark, 12, and John, who was only 9.
The entire family. 6 people.
All of them shot. The police secure the scene, and the investigation starts immediately. The weapon was determined to be a .35 caliber lever-action Marlin 336C rifle.
I want to pause on the weapon for a moment because this is one of those details that usually gets glossed over, but it's critical. A .35 caliber rifle is not a quiet weapon.
Not at all. We are talking about a high-powered deer rifle. It creates a massive boom. Expert testimony puts it at around 140 decibels. Inside a house, that sound would be deafening.
It's like a cannon going off.
Exactly. A cannon going off 6 times.
So you have this cannon going off inside a suburban house at 3 a.m. 6 times. But here's the first mystery. The neighbors didn't call the police.
That's the first anomaly, and it's a big one. The neighbors reported hearing the family dog barking, a sheepdog named Shaggy, but nobody reported gunshots.
How is that possible?
Well, some people speculated later that the killer used a silencer, but the forensic investigation ruled that out conclusively. The rifle hadn't been fitted for one, and there were no threads on the barrel to attach one.
So we have a loud gun that nobody heard, and then we have the victims themselves. The forensic details here are really important because they become a huge point of contention later on, especially regarding whether DeFeo acted alone.
The crime scene photos and the coroner's report paint a very specific, very confusing picture. All the victims were found face down in their beds.
All of them, even the little ones.
Every single one. Face down, hands usually near their heads or tucked under their pillows. And perhaps most disturbingly, there were no signs of a struggle. No overturned furniture, no defensive wounds, no signs that anyone tried to run or hide.
That is baffling. I mean, if a gun goes off in the next room, you wake up, you move, you try to get under the bed.
You'd think so. DeFeo would later claim he drugged them, which would be a logical explanation. If they were sedated, they wouldn't hear the shots.
All right, that would make sense.
But the toxicology reports came back negative. No sedatives, no drugs in their systems.
So we have the parents shot twice, and the children each shot once, all in their beds, seemingly without fighting back or fleeing. It's one of the lingering mysteries of the actual crime.
It really is. It suggests a level of stealth or speed that is hard to reconcile with a lever-action rifle. You have to manually work the lever for each shot.
Oh, what? It's just psychological paralysis, like fear so intense that they simply froze.
That's one theory. But for all 6 to be in the exact same position, it is just deeply strange.
Okay, so let's go back to that night. Butch DeFeo is at the police station. He's the sole survivor. He's the guy who ran into the bar asking for help. What is his story initially?
At first, he plays the victim. He tells police this was a mob hit. He blames a hitman named Louis Fellini.
Louis Fellini.
Yeah. He claims he's innocent and that this hitman wiped out his family while he was either forced to watch or was hiding somewhere in the house.
Which, given that his father allegedly had some, let's say, distinct connections, or at least he bragged about them, that might have seemed plausible for a hot second.
Right. Ronald Sr. was a guy who liked to project a tough guy image. He worked at a car dealership, but seemingly had more money than that job would provide. So the police looked into the Louis Fellini angle immediately. They took it seriously.
And not for long?
No, it crumbled almost instantly. They ran a check on Louis Fellini. It turned out he had a rock-solid alibi.
He wasn't even in the state, was he?
Not even close. He was out of state at the time of the murders. He physically could not have been in Amityville.
And once that thread was pulled,
the whole tapestry unraveled. The police started pressing DeFeo on the inconsistencies in his timeline. They found the empty box for the murder weapon in his room.
Oh, that's not a good look.
Not at all. The very next day, November 14th, DeFeo confessed. And his confession was chilling in its simplicity. He told detectives, "Once I started, I just couldn't stop. It went so fast."
Once I started, I just couldn't stop. That is a quote that sticks with you. It implies a frenzy, a total loss of control.
And yet, his actions afterward were very controlled, very methodical. He detailed the cleanup. He told them how he took a bath to wash off the gunshot residue and blood. He detailed exactly where he discarded the evidence.
Where did he put it?
He threw the blood-stained clothes and the rifle into a storm drain and into the water at the foot of Ocean Avenue.
Then he went to work.
Yes. He went to work at the car dealership to establish an alibi. He called home several times throughout the day, acting worried that his father hadn't shown up for work.
Yeah, he was performing.
He played the role of the concerned son all day before going to the bar that evening to discover the bodies.
So we have a confession. We have the weapon recovered exactly where he said it would be. It seems like an open and shut case. But, as we know, the trial and the motive are where things get complicated. And this is where the character of Ronald DeFeo Jr. really starts to darken.
Extremely complicated. The trial began in 1975. His defense lawyer was a man named William Weber. Now keep that name in mind, William Weber, because he becomes a major character in the hoax aspect we will discuss later.
Okay, William Weber.
For the trial, Weber mounted an insanity defense.
Which is a high bar to clear. You have to prove you didn't know the nature of your actions or that they were wrong.
Correct. They had a psychiatrist, Daniel Schwartz, supporting the plea, claiming DeFeo was paranoid, delusional, and essentially psychotic. They tried to paint a picture of a man driven by voices in his head.
But the prosecution wasn't buying it?
Not for a second. The prosecution had their own expert, Dr. Harold Zolan. Dr. Zolan argued that while DeFeo was certainly a troubled individual, he was a heavy user of heroin and LSD, and he had clear signs of antisocial personality disorder. He was fully aware of his actions.
Being a sociopath doesn't make you legally insane.
Exactly. Zolan pointed to the cleanup, hiding the gun, creating an alibi. Those are the actions of a rational mind trying to evade capture, not a chaotic mind in the grip of psychosis.
And the jury agreed with the prosecution.
They did. On November 21st, 1975, he was found guilty on 6 counts of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 6 consecutive terms of 25 years to life. Essentially, he was never getting out.
But the question that always hangs over this is, why? Why wipe out your entire family? I can understand, well, not understand, but I can parse the logic of killing an abusive father. But why the 9-year-old brother? Why the sisters?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you look at the family dynamics, DeFeo was the eldest son in a traditional Italian-American family. There was a huge expectation for him to be the heir to take over the family business, but he was considered the black sheep.
He was failing.
Completely. He was stealing from the company. He wasn't living up to expectations.
We have reports that he had a very volatile relationship with his father, Ronald Sr.
Yes. Sources describe the father as overbearing, controlling, and potentially abusive physically. There was deep-seated resentment there. But Zolan and the prosecution pointed to something simpler. Greed.
The insurance money.
Right. It was a significant policy. DeFeo had even asked police early on, while the bodies were still being examined, how to go about collecting his father's insurance.
Talk about showing your hand. That is cold.
It suggests a level of callousness that fits the antisocial personality disorder diagnosis perfectly. So you have this mix of greed, hatred toward the father, and perhaps a jealousy of the siblings who were younger and maybe treated with more affection. It's just a toxic cocktail.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting to me. After the conviction, DeFeo didn't just go quietly into the night. He spent decades changing his story. It's like he was trying to remix the truth to see what would stick.
It is fascinating to track these changes because they show a desperate attempt to manipulate the narrative.
Yeah.
He never stuck to one story for long. For years, he claimed his sister Dawn was the real killer.
The Dawn did it theory. How did that one go?
In a 1986 interview, and later in his legal appeals, he claimed that Dawn killed the father in a fit of rage. Then, the distraught mother, Louise, killed the siblings to save them from the tragedy.
And then he killed the mother.
And finally, he, Butch, killed his mother to stop the carnage. He tried to paint himself as the tragic survivor who took the blame to protect his mother's reputation.
Which is wildly convenient and completely unsupported by the evidence.
Totally. But then he changes it again. In the Ricasuna account in 2000, he claimed he and Dawn plotted to kill the parents together because they were both abused.
Okay, conspiracy.
But then in this version, Dawn went rogue and killed the children to eliminate witnesses. So DeFeo claimed he shot Dawn in a rage because she killed the kids.
It's always someone else's fault. It's always, I was the good guy caught in a bad situation.
Exactly. And the court saw right through it. We have the text of the decision from DeFeo v. Artuz in 1997. Justice Thomas Stark was brutal in his assessment.
What did he say?
He ruled these later stories were false and fabricated. He noted that DeFeo's testimony was incredible and not worthy of belief. He just shut it all down.
There's also that bizarre fake wife alibi, right? This one is my favorite example of his delusion.
Oh, this is a strange one. In one of his appeals, he filed motions claiming he was married to a woman named Geraldine Gates and was living in New Jersey at the time of the murders.
What?
Yeah. He tried to argue he wasn't even living at home, so he couldn't have done it.
But the court looked into this. It's easy enough to check a marriage license.
They did. They found that Geraldine Gates didn't marry him until 1989, long after he was in prison. And the brother of hers, who was supposed to be a witness,
Didn't exist.
It was complete fabrication. He invented a life to try and vacate a conviction.
It just shows the lengths he went to. So that is the reality. A troubled young man, a toxic family dynamic, and a horrific mass murder. That is the tragedy of 112 Ocean Avenue. That is the stain on the floorboards.
But then, just over a year later, the page turns. The house is put up for sale, and a new family moves in. This is where the horror part of the Amityville horror really begins.
Enter the Lutz family, George and Kathy Lutz. They move in on December 18th, 1975.
And they got a great deal on the house, for obvious reasons. $80,000 for a waterfront property with a boathouse and a heated pool. Even in 1975, that was a steal.
They knew about the murders, though.
Oh, yeah. The realtor disclosed it. They had to. But the Lutzes figured, hey, houses don't kill people. People kill people.
Reasonable assumption. But they only lasted 28 days.
Less than a month. They fled the house in mid-January 1976. And when I say fled, I mean fled. They left their clothes in the closets. They left food in the refrigerator. They left the kids' toys.
That detail always gets me. You don't leave your stuff behind unless you're genuinely terrified. Or unless you're selling a really good story.
And that is the crux of the issue, isn't it? Now, we have to rely on the account from Jay Anson's book, The Amityville Horror, which was based on hours of tape recordings the Lutzes made. And these claims, well, they check every box for a supernatural thriller.
Let's run through the catalog of horrors. What did they say happened?
It started small, sensory things. There reported swarms of flies appearing in the sewing room.
In the middle of winter.
Exactly. This is December and January in New York. It's freezing. Flies should be dead or dormant.
So, biological anomaly number one. What's next?
Then came the physical environment. They claimed walls oozed green slime. They reported cold spots where the temperature would drop 20 degrees in seconds. They saw ghostly apparitions.
And the physical assaults. I remember reading about that.
Yes. Kathy Lutz claimed she was levitated off the bed. She claimed to have welts appear on her body. George claimed he would wake up every night at 3:15 a.m., the exact estimated time of the DeFeo murders, and he would be unable to move.
And then there's Jody. Yeah, I have to talk about Jody.
The pig.
The demonic entity described as a pig with red eyes. This is a detail that really stuck in the cultural consciousness. It terrified people.
It really did. I was reading through some old forum discussions about the film, and user after user says the pig with the glowing eyes looking into the window was the specific detail that caused the most nightmares.
Why a pig, do you think? It's so specific.
It taps into something primal. In some religious traditions, the pig is an unclean animal. It's associated with gluttony, with filth, and giving it glowing red eyes. It takes a barnyard animal and turns it into a monster. It's visceral.
The Lutzes also claimed personality changes, right? That the house was affecting their minds?
Yes, especially George. He claimed he stopped washing. He was always cold. He was obsessed with the fireplace. They felt this constant dread and foreboding.
And we can't talk about the Lutzes without talking about the priest. This is a central part of the lore, especially in the movie.
Father Ralph Pecoraro. In the story, and in the movie, he comes to bless the house while the Lutzes are unpacking. He goes into the sewing room, sprinkles holy water, and he hears a disembodied voice scream, "Get out!"
And he gets slapped.
He claims he felt a slap, yes, an unseen hand. And later he develops blisters on his hands and his heart starts racing. It's a very dramatic scene. It establishes that the evil is real and is powerful enough to challenge the church.
But when we look at the source material, specifically the interview transcripts and the investigations into the priest, the story gets shaky.
Very shaky. In a 1979 interview for the show, In Search Of, the priest described the event. But his story had inconsistencies regarding the timeline. And more damningly, the subsequent owners of the house, the Cromartys, later described him as a charlatan.
The source material mentions he had been banned from performing religious duties by the diocese.
Correct. The Diocese of Rockville Center essentially disbarred him, if you want to use a legal term, from performing his priestly duties. He was seen as a rogue operator. The Cromartys were very vocal that his credibility was non-existent and that he was just looking for fame.
So we have the Lutzes fleeing in terror, and then comes the media storm. The book by Jay Anson comes out in 1977. It claims to be a true story. It becomes a massive bestseller.
Then the 1979 film with James Brolin and Margot Kidder, it was a blockbuster.
It became a cultural phenomenon. It defined the haunted house genre for decades. Before Amityville, haunted houses were Gothic mansions on hills.
After Amityville, a haunted house could be a nice suburban home with a pool. It brought the horror into the middle class.
But as the fame grew, so did the skepticism. Let's talk about the hoax allegations, because there were some heavy hitters who came out and said, this is all made up.
One of the biggest and most colorful voices was Stephen Kaplan. He was a parapsychologist who founded the Vampire Research Center.
The Vampire Research Center? That's quite the business card.
It is. But despite the name, he was actually the skeptic in this case. He claimed George Lutz called him very early on, asking about fees for an investigation.
Okay.
Kaplan told him, if it's a hoax, the public will find out. I will expose it.
And what did Lutz do?
Apparently, Lutz canceled the investigation right after that. He didn't want the skeptic. He wanted the believer who would generate publicity. Kaplan eventually wrote a book called The Amityville Horror Conspiracy, arguing that the Lutzes defrauded the public.
And then we have William Weber again, DeFeo's lawyer from the murder trial. He dropped a bombshell later on.
This is the smoking gun for the hoax theory. Weber admitted in an interview that he and the Lutzes created the story over many bottles of wine.
Over many bottles of wine. That is a very specific, very human image. You can just picture them at the kitchen table brainstorming scares.
Weber claimed they cooked it up to capitalize on the tragedy. It was a business arrangement. The Lutzes had a mortgage they couldn't afford. Remember, the house was cheap, but the taxes and heating were high.
And Weber's angle.
Weber wanted a new angle for DeFeo's appeal. If the house is haunted, maybe demons made him do it. It was a long shot, but he was desperate.
So they both had a financial motive.
A huge one. And a best-selling book and movie deal solves all those problems.
The Lutzes always denied this collusion, didn't they?
They denied it until they died. They took lie detector tests, which they passed, although the reliability of those is always debatable. But Weber's admission is hard to ignore. It provides a clear motive for the fabrication.
There is also the mythology about the land itself. The book and movie love to claim the house sits on an Indian burial ground or was owned by a witch named John Ketchum. This adds that ancient evil flavor.
It does, but historically it's absolute nonsense.
Complete nonsense.
Total fiction. The local historical societies and the Shinnecock Nation leaders have rejected the burial ground claim repeatedly.
Yeah.
They didn't bury people there. It's an offensive and factually incorrect trope.
And what about the witch, John Ketchum?
The Ketchum family actually did their own genealogical research because their name was being dragged through the mud. They proved there was no witch John Ketchum in Amityville. The land previously belonged to the Ireland family, who were prominent locals, and then the Moynahans.
And they lived there happily.
Exactly. No record of a witch on that land. It was pure fiction added by Jay Anson to spice up the narrative.
So if the land isn't cursed and the history is fake, what about the house itself? After the Lutzes left, did the haunting continue? This seems like the ultimate test. If the house is evil, it should be evil for everyone.
This is the most telling part for me. The next owners were Jim and Barbara Cromartie. They bought the house in 1977.
Right when the book was hitting the shelves. What a time to move in.
Can you imagine? And they lived there for a decade, 10 years.
And did they see green slime? Did they see Jody?
They didn't report a single paranormal event. No slime, no pigs, no cold spots. They reported that it was a lovely sunny home.
But they did have problems.
They had huge problems, but they were human problems. They reported tourists. That was the real horror. People standing on their lawn, taking photos, trying to break in to see the Red Room.
Right. They called the haunting a crock.
They did. They actually sued the Lutzes and Jay Anson for invasion of privacy and fraud. They stated in legal filings, only one family had a tragedy happen to them in this house, the DeFeos. Every other family had nothing but good things.
They even had to change the address to stop people from gawking.
They did. And the owners after them, the O'Neills, went even further. They filled in the famous pool and they actually changed those iconic eye windows to square ones just to make it look like a normal house. They physically demystified the architecture.
It seems the consensus among every owner since the Lutzes is that the house is perfectly normal. The biggest annoyance is trespassers.
Which heavily, heavily tips the scales toward the hoax theory. You have financial motive, you have contradicted testimony, you have a lawyer admitting to making it up over wine, and you have subsequent owners living in peace.
But, and there is always a but on the deep dive, we can't just wrap it up there. Because dismissing it as a pure lie might be missing a nuance about how the human brain works under stress.
There is. Just because there were no ghosts doesn't mean the Lutzes didn't see things.
This brings us to our curveball source. We have this fascinating study from the Journal of Sleep Research, and this might offer a third option. Not that it was a real ghost, and not that they were lying, but that they experienced something biological that they interpreted as a haunting.
This is where we connect belief to biology. The study is by Roth et al., published in 2023. It's titled The Associations Between Paranormal Beliefs and Sleep Variables.
So what did they find? What is the connection?
They found a significant statistical association between paranormal beliefs and poor sleep quality.
Okay, let's unpack that. What does that mean practically?
It means people who believe in the soul living after death, ghosts, demons, or aliens, reported lower sleep efficiency. They took longer to fall asleep, and they slept for shorter durations.
So, if you believe in ghosts, you sleep worse. Or is it that if you sleep worse, you start believing in ghosts? Which way does the causation go?
That's the why mechanism we need to look at.
Yeah.
And the study suggests it's likely a feedback loop. If you are anxious about paranormal things, scared of ghosts or demons, that anxiety interferes with your sleep. You are lying awake, listening to every creak in the house.
And when you are sleep deprived,
Yeah.
your brain starts doing weird things.
Exactly. Poor sleep and insomnia lead to specific physiological episodes. The study highlights two major ones: isolated sleep paralysis, or ISP, and exploding head syndrome, or EHS.
Those sound terrifying. Let's start with sleep paralysis. I think a lot of people have heard of this, but explain what is actually happening in the body.
So ISP is a condition where you wake up or you are falling asleep and you cannot move. Your body is paralyzed. This is actually a normal part of REM sleep. It's called rematonia. It prevents you from acting out your dreams physically.
So your brain paralyzes your muscles so you don't, punch the wall in your sleep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in sleep paralysis, your mind wakes up while that paralysis is still active. So you are conscious, you are in your bed, but you cannot lift a finger. You cannot scream. It's incredibly frightening.
And this often comes with hallucinations.
Yes, that is the hallmark. Because your brain is in a hybrid state between dreaming and waking, it projects dream imagery into the real world. Historically, this has been interpreted as old hag attacks, demonic assault, or in some cultures, the jinn sitting on your chest. You hallucinate shadow people, intruders, or ghosts.
So if the Lutzes were stressed, say, about a mortgage they couldn't afford, or living in a house where a mass murder happened, they might have been sleeping poorly.
And what did George Lutz claim? He said he woke up every night at 3:15 a.m., unable to move.
That matches the description perfectly.
And if George Lutz wakes up paralyzed, seeing a shadow figure in the corner, which is a biological glitch, he interprets it through his fear. He thinks that's a demon. He thinks that's the spirit of DeFeo.
And what about exploding head syndrome? That sounds violent.
It's not physically dangerous, but it is startling. It involves hearing a loud noise or an explosion in your head during sleep transitions.
Like a gunshot.
Exactly. It can sound like a cymbal crash, a bomb, or a gunshot. It's a sensory hallucination.
Wait a minute. If you are living in a house where 6 people were shot,
Exactly. If you hear a loud bang in your head as you're drifting off, you might interpret that as a supernatural reenactment of the crime. The study found that people who experience EHS held stronger beliefs that aliens visited Earth or in supernatural causes.
so the biology creates the hallucination and the belief system provides the narrative for it.
Precisely. It's a confirmation bias loop. I couldn't move, and I saw a shadow, therefore demons are real. I heard a bang, therefore the murders are replaying.
This makes so much sense regarding the Lutzes. They move into a house with a horrific history. They are already primed for fear.
They are stressed financially. They're probably not sleeping well. The furnace is loud. The house is settling. Old houses make noise.
George Lutz wakes up at 3:15 a.m. Maybe he has sleep paralysis. He sees Jody, the pig. But maybe Jody is just a coat rack and a hallucination caused by REM intrusion.
It provides a plausible, biological explanation for their experience. They might not have been lying in the sense that they did experience these things, but the cause wasn't a demon. It was their own brains under stress.
That is fascinating. It turns the hoax versus haunting binary into something much more complex.
It does. It humanizes them a bit. Even if they embellish later for money, the seed of the story could have been a very real sleep disorder.
It also explains why the Cromarties didn't see anything.
Right. They weren't scared. They weren't under the same kind of stress. They slept fine. No fear, no adrenaline, no sleep paralysis, no ghosts.
So where does that leave us with 112 Ocean Avenue?
It leaves us with a complex legacy.
Mm.
On one hand, you have the DeFeo murders. That is the hard reality. A tragedy of family violence, drugs, and mental illness. That happened. It's undisputed.
And on the other hand, you have the legend.
Which is likely a mix of fabrication, exaggeration, and perhaps biology. A perfect storm of factors.
It is amazing how this one house has absorbed so much of our culture's fear.
It's a monument to folklore. Whether you believe in the red room and the green slime, or you side with the skeptics and the sleep scientists, the house at 112 Ocean Avenue remains a container for all these anxieties.
It really is. It's a story about what happens when tragedy meets imagination.
And money.
And money, always money.
But I think the sleep study angle is the most potent takeaway for the modern listener. It reminds us that our own perceptions are fragile. Our brains can play tricks on us.
Absolutely. So we've covered the crime, the trial, the haunting, the hoax, and the science.
We have. It's a lot to unpack.
I want to circle back to one thing before we wrap up. The DeFeo appeals. We touched on them, but reading through the DeFeo VR2's decision, the sheer volume of different stories DeFeo told is staggering.
It is. And it speaks to a certain type of pathology. To be able to invent a wife, a fake brother-in-law, and maintain that lie in federal court. It suggests that the chaos in that house started long before the ghosts allegedly showed up. The chaos was in Ronald DeFeo Jr. himself.
And the tragedy is that the folklore often overshadows the victims, the parents, and those 4 kids.
That's the sobering part. When people go to take selfies outside the house today, they're usually thinking about the movie, not the 6 people who lost their lives in 1974. We forget that Dawn, Allison, Mark, and John were real children who had their lives stolen from them.
That is a very, very good point. Well, we have unpacked a lot today.
We certainly have.
What stands out to you the most, if you had to pick one nugget from all of this?
I think it's the contrast between the Cromartys and the Lutzes. You have 2 families living in the same space. One sees demons, the other sees a lovely home. It just proves that a haunting is often more about the people than the place. We bring our own ghosts with us.
We bring our own ghosts with us. I like that a lot.
And perhaps, as the sleep study suggests, we manufacture them when we don't get enough rest.
So the lesson here might be, get your 8 hours of sleep, folks. It might keep the demons away.
It certainly couldn't hurt. And maybe check the interest rates on your mortgage before you buy a murder house.
Good advice. Before we go, I want to leave the listener with a final thought. We know DeFeo changed his story constantly. We know the Lutzes had a financial incentive to lie. But that sleep study raises a fascinating third option.
Go on.
Is it possible to be a fraud and a believer at the same time? Could the stress of the murders or the financial pressure have caused sleep disorders that felt real, that felt like a haunting to the Lutzes, turning a biological glitch into a legendary ghost story? Maybe they really did see something. It just wasn't what they thought it was.
That is the gray area where the most interesting truth usually hides.
And that is where we are going to leave it for today. Thank you for diving deep with us into the Amityville horror.
Thanks for listening.
Sleep well, if you can.